Everybody, thank you for coming to the council meeting with the microphone on of December 18th, 2018. Can I get roll call, please?
Mayor Harris,
Here.
Vice Mayor Cardoza,
Here.
Councilmember Boomgarden,
Here.
Councilmember Espandola,
Here.
and Councilmember Shaw.
Here.
There you go. Invocation this evening will be led by Councilmember Shaw. Please stand up.
Let's stand and pray. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day, dear Lord, and we just thank you for this time of the year, and help us remember that you're the reason for this particular season. Help us go through this season with a heart of giving and thankfulness and humility. And Lord, we just pray that you will grant us wisdom and you will grant us clarity as we hear matters before this council tonight to make this city the city that you would have it to be. And we thank you now for the guidance and the wisdom and everything that comes forth. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Salute. Pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. We have a proclamation. Is Beth Boucher here? There she is. Welcome. How you doing, Beth? Nervous? All right. Well, from what I understand, you've been in front of people for many, many years. You should be used to that.
Yes.
All right. Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. And we are here to congratulate Beth on her retirement from the city of Yuba City. Beth is retiring from the Yuba City Parks and Recreation Department with 29 years of service. Beth began her career with the city in 1990 as a water aerobics instructor and taught water classes for 17 years. She helped build the fitness program at the Senior Center and implemented programs such as the Walk Club, Stretch and Flexibility, Step Out Walk Day, Fitness After 50, Fit Ball, and Body Toning. I can tell. Yep. Beth developed a loyal following of students with an average monthly enrollment of 30 students. Beth started many senior center traditions, including her annual Halloween-themed classes, which everyone all look forward to each year. Her Halloween costumes included a bowl of cereal, a paper doll, Hershey Kiss, Rubik's Cube, gumball machine, or the wheel from The Price is Right, just to name a few. It's pretty creative. Beth contributed so much to the quality of the programs at the Senior Center has made quality many of the programs at the Senior Center has made lifelong friends and has impacted the lives of countless participants at the Senior Center over the years and will truly be missed. Well, I guess so. That's a lot. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Sean Harris, Mayor of the City of Yuba City, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby honor and commend Beth Boucher for her 29 years of service to the Yuba City Parks and Recreation Department, the City of Yuba City, and to the people of Yuba City, and wish her much success and happiness in her very well-deserved retirement. Thank you. Congratulations. It's always the fun stuff right there, huh? DBA, Sandy Down, is she here? There you are. Be happy to hear a presentation about the Christmas stroll.
All right. Good evening, Mayor Harris, Councilman, Councilwoman, for your time tonight. My name is Sandy Drown, and I am a volunteer as a board member for the Yuba City Downtown Business Association and currently the event chair as well. We currently had our Christmas stroll on December 8th from 2 to 8. Mayor Harris and council members were there for the tree lighting led by our mayor. This event was successful. We had over 149 vendors and a waiting list where we were actually couldn't accommodate everybody because we were sold out, which was exciting. We added some new attractions such as the Rawhide Train, which rode up and down the Plymouth Street. We had Santa's Workshop, where we partnered this year with Lowe's to build birdhouses with the children. At the North Pole, we added a Facebook family picture area with elves this year and a brand new sleigh. At the south end of Plymouth Street was our Animal Kingdom, and we were able to negotiate and get motorized animal rides for the kids, including farm animals as well as llamas, and then we did have a famous wagging potbelly pig that the children loved this year. We also added a elf on the shelf contest, where we hid 24 elves in our businesses on the street, and we were able to have all of the attendees go and find those. And so we had 3 different raffles, and that was really popular that we added this year. We did improve Mrs. Claus' attraction. We were able to bring her back to the Tea Garden House thanks to Cindy Bain. And we were also able to bring back our Polar Express train, which they really stepped up this year and added those lights. A note, though, on that, we are working on a non-sponsored vehicle for next year's City Council. Just wanted to add that. I would like to thank my committee who worked tirelessly and donated their time for this event, which was Crystal Martin, who's my right hand, who I wouldn't be able to do this event without her. Fellow board members, Teresa, Cindy, Shanda, Angie, Cameo, Danielle, JJ, and Jim Matthews. And then we also included on our committee this year outside members, which was Dave Flores, Brandon, Brian, and Carrie Conejo, Olivia Husky, and of course, Manny Claus was included on our committee. So thank you, Manny. We also had great sponsors as well. We increased that. We tripled our numbers this year, and that's why we were able to also bring some great additions to the event. But the reason why I'm here today is I wanted to thank the city of Yuba City for being such a great community partner and supporting us with these events that we put on. It really does take a whole community, and we appreciate your support. I would like to thank our city manager, Steve, which I know is helping us with all those decisions that I throw at Darren Gale. And Darren always, besides just the events, we're always trying to improve the Plymouth Street, and I appreciate you listening to all the wild ideas that we have. I'd also like to thank Sergeant Slade and the police department for the excellent safety that they provide for this event, especially with the size. Our Fire Marshal Jesse and the fire department at every event, they ensure that we ensure that we help with the fire code and making sure that we're also learning as well with our food vendors. Parks and Recs, Brad McIntyre and Rob, who orchestrated the tree lighting that went without a hitch. And they also helped with talking with Richard's Tree Service to get the lighting set up. And then Public Works, Scott Chandler, Jack McDaniels, Jim Tappy, and the rest of their team for all the behind-the-scenes support that they give us. I would also like to recognize Raul Gonzalez, who came out the day before the event and helped us mark 149 spots for all of our vendors. We could not be able to put this type of event on if we didn't have our city support, and we appreciate all you do for the Yuba City Downtown Business Association. You guys have any questions for me? I kind of went over sponsors quickly because I don't know if there was, I don't know how long you wanted, if you wanted to even know who sponsored. We made we tripled our numbers, so that might be interesting for you guys to know. Yeah. I'm excited. I'm a numbers girl, sorry.
Thank you very much, Sandy. The lot of work, it was clearly representative of a lot of people doing a lot of work to put the event together. And the attendance was through the roof, it seemed like this time. And I spoke to 2 folks, excuse me, who were victims of the Paradise Fire, and they were very appreciative of being able to attend the event and to see and visit our city, of course, in less than ideal conditions, but you definitely made Christmas better for them with all those efforts as well.
We were excited to have that as outside people that probably wouldn't have been able to attend or didn't know about our event, so hopefully next year Absolutely. They now know. So
very good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. On to item number 3, with a public hearing regarding the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grants, and we have Lieutenant Baker here from the PD. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Tonight before you, we have a staff report looking for approval for the 2017 and 2018 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Grant. In 2017, we applied for this grant, and through circumstances beyond our control, due to some conflicting state and federal opinions of law, that grant was not funded until November of this current year. We submitted our 2018 application this fall, and shortly after receiving approval for the 2017 award, we found out we also obtained the 18 award as well. This grant is a little bit unique in the fact that we share these funds with Sutter County. So for the 2017 award, we'll receive $15,667, and for the 18 award, we'll receive $17,719. Of that, the city will be the fiscal agent, and we will receive $14,845 from the 17 award, and for the 18 award, we'll be the recipient of $15,450, with the county receiving the remaining funds. For the 17 award, that was $822, and for the 18 award, it's $2,259. Good thing about this grant, it's a no-match grant. We intend to utilize these funds for a number of years. We've had an interoperability system, and that has been housed in the Sutter Buttes, and so we have to rent vault space up on the top of the buttes to secure the radio equipment. And there's also a maintenance contract that we have to pay for annually for that equipment. As a couple things of note regarding that equipment and the interoperability and what it is. So during the evacuation in 2017, we had numerous law enforcement agencies come in from throughout the North State to assist us when the city was evacuated. Because of that interoperability system, we were able to have everybody on the same communication channel, which is critical in emergency events, having everybody being able to communicate with one another. And also recently during the Camp Fire, Butte County had some issues with their equipment, and they were able to utilize part of the interoperability equipment that we have, so they could get in excess of 200 law enforcement officers to be able to communicate during that event up there. So the recommendation is, after a public hearing, adopt a resolution authorizing the Chief of Police to accept the 2017 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant in the amount of $15,867. The second one would be adopting a resolution authorizing the Chief of Police to accept the 18 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Grant in the amount of $17,719. Authorize the mayor to execute the associated memorandums of understanding with Sutter County on behalf of the city, following approval by the city attorney. The fourth recommendation would be to authorize the mayor to execute the 2017 and 2018 certifications and assurances documents that are attached to the staff report, and authorize the chief financial officer to make the necessary budget adjustments. And at this time, I'll take any questions that the council may have.
All right, back to council. Any questions?
Through the mayor, does it take anybody to staff that that system that manages the interoperability, or is it automatic?
There is some setup that goes into that, and through our partnership with Motorola and Motorola Solutions, we have the ability to do that. There's a reserve for the Sutter County Sheriff's Department that is employed by Motorola itself, and we've always been able to utilize him to make those things happen. It takes probably about an hour to get it all set up and running in a critical incident.
Thank you.
Else? All right.
Through the mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm glad to hear that you talked about the interoperability. I can't say the actual word. Utilized, but how can you give us an example of how that was used when the evacuation that you mentioned in 2017?
So everybody operates on different radio frequencies or throughout the North State in our region that we would request mutual aid from. So with this interoperability system, it gives people the ability that we can merge all those frequencies together. Ask me how that happens, and I'll stand here and tell you I don't have a clue. I can turn a radio on, I can turn a computer on, but how it works, I don't know. But what it does is it migrates everything to one channel. So like at the campfire, our staff was up there for about 18 days from the police department working that event, and I worked several days up there. They had over 200 law enforcement officers, like I said, on one channel. So that's a pretty big feat, and it's very helpful in those events to where people don't know the area, so it can get confusing, and being able to all communicate on one streamlined radio channel is very important, and it improves officer safety.
Thank you.
Good. Yep. All right. Well, this time we'll open up the public hearing for Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, which is now open. If there are any members of the public who would like to address the council on the issue, please step up to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Hearing no further comment on the issue, I am closing the public hearing, bringing matter back to council for action. Please.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a few additional questions. I was waiting to see if the public had any comments
Okay.
first. I get the whole system with the inoperability, and that is a huge success. Two questions I have for you. First of all, did I hear correct? We're relying on one reserve officer to be able to bring this system up.
We have that luxury of having him to be able to do that for us. Our local Sutter Buttes Communication also has people that can make that go live for us as well. So there is some redundancy built into that
Okay.
process.
All right, thank you. The second question that I would have is, I know the report lays it out what these funds are being used for, and they're great if we have a big catastrophe. The campfire, the Oroville Dam last year, the floods several years ago. But can any of these funds be used to help improve our communication on a day-to-day issue between the two agencies, such as, we have the Walton area, which is currently still being serviced by the county, and we have issues sometimes to where people are calling in and have to get referred over to the county. Can any of these funds, if we continue to get grants, be used to improve that system to where our residents on a day-to-day basis will have better compatibility with working with the two agencies when they have an issue?
It could be, if I understand what you're saying, that may be something more along the lines of when they call into dispatch. Is that what?
Correct. When they call into dispatch, call into 911, I've heard multiple times where people not realizing if they're in the county or the city because of all the jurisdictions issues, then they have to get transferred, have to call back into another dispatch. I'm not talking the entire grant, but if we continue to get this year over year, can we be looking in the future for some of these funds to be used to help resolve that issue for our residents, for our citizens?
Good evening, Council. So, Councilman Shaw, to answer your question, right, this is big scale. This is the ability to handle that. And the other one is just a simple matter of jurisdictional issues. So I don't think it's so much a communication issue and grant funding. It's more of a outlining which is the jurisdiction. If we're going to take over law enforcement services eventually, I don't think there's a communication or a interoperability issue that exists there. The phone lines, they can call us very readily, and we have the same channels. We can communicate with Sutter County right now without interoperability. So we can always look to use other avenues in the future for the funding, but the cost of the renting that particular space is always going to be the same cost. We'll always have that cost. We can either do it through a grant or we can do it out of the budget. Either way, the cost is going to be there.
Right. Okay.
But I hope I answered your question. I apologize if I didn't.
You did. I didn't want us not to address a day-to-day issue by only looking at the large-scale issue and wanting to know if we have that ability. And it sounds like you're saying, Chief, that we have that ability and it is being looked at on an ongoing basis.
Correct. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all the questions I had, Mayor.
Good? All right. Looking for action.
Through the mayor,
Yes.
Okay, I'm not gonna read all this. I'm just gonna staff's recommendation of A, B, C, D, and E.
And just for clarity, you're going to do what with staff's recommendation?
Adopt the resolution of A, B, C, D, and E. I'm just gonna say.
Move to approve it?
Move to approve,
All right.
please.
I have a second.
I'll second.
All right, first and second to approve staff's recommendations A through E. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
No, same sign. Any abstentions? All right, thank you very much. Congrats.
Thank you.
Item number 4, an ordinance, John L. Sullivan Auto Dealership Expansion. And Mr. Gale, you're on, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Darren Gale, the city's interim Development Services Director. This evening, I'm before you on an item that was heard at the City Council on November 20th of 2018. Just a little background. John L. Sullivan is located on the corner of Colusa Highway and Harder Parkway. They initially built their project with just the main facility, kind of, this area. Since they originally opened up, they've expanded their bays for additional part service, right? So they've had a significant increase in service. They've also expanded into to this area right here. Immediately to the west was property owned by the church, which has a development plan for it. And they were able to purchase 2 acres from the adjoining property. You might notice around town there's a number of locations that John L. Sullivan is parking vehicles. Anywhere they can find kind of an open space, they've been parking vehicles, and they purchased this additional 2 acres for them to be able to store additional vehicles on site. So that was the purpose of this project. The project has moved, in order to move this project forward, it required a general plan amendment from office commercial, so CO, to general commercial, which is C3. This evening, the action before the City Council is to waive the second reading of the ordinance and to adopt the ordinance, which would change the zoning on this property from office commercial to general commercial. This is just another close-up picture to get a little better sense. And this is a drawing of kind of how the parking will be set up. This is not a place where customers would be driving in and out of. This is a place to park additional vehicles. Of course, it doesn't stop them from actually taking a person back there to show vehicles. You might, right now, a number of their vehicles are on 99 south of Stewart Road. And this is a picture of the plan to the west for the church. And the red line basically shows where this 2 acres would be changed. So it doesn't affect their ability to build their facility, and they wouldn't have to come back and do any type of amendment, the church. So what I'd ask, or the recommendation before the City Council is to waive the second reading and to adopt the ordinance, and I can answer any questions that the council might have.
Questions?
I appreciate the discussion and the explanation. I'm interested in the status of the issue with the Heritage Oak, if you could help us with where you're at with that.
So at the last council meeting, the council adopted some type of mitigation measure, and they wanted to make sure that it wasn't the $17,000 that was being proposed. We've worked, Borges Architecture's here, we've worked with them, and they're going to donate 5 oak trees to be planted somewhere in the city, and they'll be providing those to the city here sometime in the near future, and that's what they thought would work, and staff believes that meets the intent of the city's council action on November 20th.
Anything else? While we're on the topic of the trees, Darren, I'd like to a note in there if we can amend or modify or whatever we need to do, that the cost of the 5 trees, or maybe if we have to drop it down to 2 or 3, that the cost to the dealership does not exceed $2,000. Are we able to do that?
So if we would amend the resolution, it would require an additional meeting. So maybe what I can take it as direction from the council,
Sure.
that it be within this $2,000 range, and that it meets the intent of what the council adopted on the 20th. I say that if we wanted to actually go back and change the development plan, it would require another planning commission meeting and a city council meeting, and it would actually probably cost the applicant more money than what the trees would cost.
If we can get there without, I don't want to hit them hard.
Got it.
The $2,000 I think is enough.
I will make sure and pass that along to the applicant.
Thank you very much. One more question. I read in the reports and whatnot that the new expansion is going to include something to do for loading and offloading the
Yeah.
CHP would call them parking lot trucks, where they're not having to stop on the road. Is there?
Correct.
I don't see where is it on the drawing unless I missed it, or can you perhaps point it out?
Yeah, so the vehicles will actually enter in they can enter in two different ways. They can enter in off a Harder and come into their driveway here, or they'll be able to enter into Spirit Way and then travel out off to Harder. Right now, they're parking their vehicle on Harder Parkway, which is not allowed, but we understand we're trying to help them out, and they've been very gracious throughout this process, and that will be where they're able to pull their vehicle in and unload vehicles on their property.
Okay.
Instead
that
of
will
on Harder
accommodate
Parkway.
the semi-trailer.
It will.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Any further questions?
Through the mayor?
Yep.
I have, as what you're proposing would change the general plan, correct? So then in that, the prior plan was for Calvary to utilize that property for something and can you explain that a little more, how that's going to end up changing?
So the general plan amendment, if I'm correct, Shannon, if you could help me out, was the council action on the 20th. So as we're talking about general plan amendments, rezones, there's very specific laws as relates to that within CEQA. So I'll let Shannon answer the legal question if you have that, but Councilwoman, in general, I would tell you is there was a plan here. It was designated in the general plan as office commercial.
Correct.
Which a church was allowed to be in, and they actually have an active development plan. In order for it to be used for a car dealer, it was required to change to community commercial and to the C3 zone. So these 2 acres here, just that are in this red spot, are being taken out of the church project because they've purchased them, and it's being rezoned to community commercial, which is what's required for a car dealership. If that answers your question, if you have related to the legal about exactly how the process goes, it's actually probably a great opportunity for a study session, specifically about how development projects are brought forward, what's the application, how staff meets before what we call development review committee. Then after that, there's a development review committee with the actual applicant, and we go over conditions, and we deem the project complete or incomplete. And there's actually a state law that we have to do that within 30 days of receiving an application. But I don't know if Shannon wants to add anything else.
Thank you, Darren. Councilwoman, this was part of a package that was presented to the council on November 20th. The general plan amendment has been approved at this point. So it's approved, it only needs to be approved at 1 meeting. However, in order to get a rezone, it requires 2 meetings, a first reading and a second reading. Tonight, this item is before you as a second reading. If the city council does not make any changes to this resolution, it can be adopted this evening. If the city council does make changes to this resolution, it will be reset back to the first reading and then will require another meeting in order to be approved.
So to clarify one thing, Shannon, this is an ordinance, correct? Not a resolution?
Yes, I'm sorry, Darren. This is a rezone ordinance, not a resolution. Thank you.
So what our mayor is proposing of the 2,000, is that a change in the resolution?
I believe that I just received direction from the city council to meet the condition that was placed on November 20th, and that it doesn't require a change to this ordinance.
Through the mayor, if I may, the legal mechanism, if the city council as a whole is inclined to move forward to clarify what the value of those trees would be to adopt the recommendation of staff tonight to approve the zoning without a change to the resolution, and then have the minutes reflect that it is the council's determination as to what the value of those 5 trees at a $2,000 cap would be, assuming the council as a whole had that direction as part of their motion.
Thank you.
With that being said, can we ask the representative of the applicant to weigh in on what his understanding of that agreement is?
Be Mayor and City Council men and women. My name is Mal Montoy with Borges Architectural Group, and I'm the one causing all this issue here. It's my understanding, if I hear you right, Mayor, we've had multiple conversations today with Darren and trying to come up with a solution here, is that Mr. Solomon has committed to, up to 5 oak trees. And if I understand you right, it's my understanding that the cap on those trees, even if it reduces the number of trees, would be $2,000.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions?
Probably a
for me?
good place to start would be maybe some 24 inches. And if that means 3 instead of 5, so be it.
Yeah, 24-inch box trees is kind of what we were thinking as well. So
Perfect.
we talked to Darren actually when I got here, and there's a local nursery that the city uses. So Darren is going to send me that information, and we'll reach out to them, and we'll come up with some arrangement, and we'll stay communicated with Darren.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Once again, looking for action, Finney?
Through the mayor.
Stand by.
I'm gonna need a little help with this, Shannon, please. I'm gonna adopt the ordinance rezoning 2 acres from office commercial zone district to general commercial C3 zone district and waive the second reading. And Shannon, can you help me with the tree and money part?
And also direct the city clerks to enter into the minutes that council has set the value of the trees, the replacement trees, at 5 oak trees not to exceed a value of $2,000. Is that what you had in mind, council member?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If we may modify that to up to 5, not to exceed $2,000. Does that make sense?
Just curiosity, what's the value of a 24-inch oak tree so we have an understanding of where our baseline is here?
From what we could find out, approximately $700 per tree for a 24-inch oak tree.
Thank you, Mr. Gale.
There we go. Okay. Good?
Yep.
All right. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve staff's recommendation with the additional caveat that the cost of the mitigation of up to 5 oak trees not to exceed $2,000. All those in favor signify by saying
Mr. Mayor,
aye. Yes,
through the
sir.
mayor,
I
if I
messed
could-
it up.
I'm so sorry. Before we proceed, could I suggest opening this for public hearing so the
You
public would
may,
have an
and I failed to read that line on my thing here. It's even in a different color. I'll be honest, all right? Anybody in the public would like to comment on this issue? Please, if so, please feel free to do so. Yes, sir, step up to the podium. State your name and address for the record if you don't mind, and then we'd be happy to hear what you have to say.
My name is Vincent Burns, live at 549 Clint Way. I'm just curious to why are we putting a cap on the trees and value of that? I don't know the answer.
That is a very good question. I can tell you that there's some schools of thought, mitigation versus non-mitigation, and it's all stemmed. Are you familiar with the project at all, sir?
No.
There is a large oak tree, I believe it was called a heritage oak tree, that was once standing on that property. And the tree appeared to be in poor health. We had a certified arborist confirm the tree was in poor health on many different levels. It was reported that a limb from the tree fell, damaged a fence, and almost hit an employee and a customer and a car. So the tree was removed by the dealership. Some cities, and this apparently is one of them, have a procedure in place for heritage oak trees to where when folks remove trees, there's mitigation process. Mitigation meaning you got to make up for what you took. We are of the opinion, and that value based on we obtained the value of about $17,000. I think it's $17,126. We are of the opinion that given the circumstances, and that was a safety issue, the tree was dying and in poor health anyway, it would be not appropriate to charge this dealership or anybody, in principle, $17,000 for a tree that was on its way out the door anyway. However, the dealership has been kind enough to say, you know what, we get it, but we'll give you 5 trees. I came up with the idea, and I will be completely honest with you, off the top of my head, if they're willing to give us a little bit, I just want to, $2,000 I think is reasonable, and that's what we came up with, which is why I proposed it.
All right, that answers it.
Make sense?
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Yeah, very good. That's the purpose, right? And thank you for that. So we already have the motion and the second. Do we have to re-motion and second? Good? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
And abstentions? None. All right. We passed. Thank you very much. And now we are on, hold on a second. What? Public communication. All right, we're on to public communication with written requests. And do we don't have any written requests, ma'am?
None received.
Okay. You are all welcome and encouraged to participate in the meeting, and public comment is taken on items listed on the agenda when they are called. Public comment on items not listed on the agenda will be heard at this time. Comments on controversial items may be limited, and large groups are encouraged to select representatives to express the opinions of the group. We have no written requests. We have anybody who would like to speak who have not submitted a written request? Okay. Then we will move on to the consent calendar. All matters listed on our consent calendar are considered to be routine and can be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items prior to the time that council votes on the motion unless members of the city council, staff, or public request specific items to be discussed or removed from the consent calendar for individual action.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would like agenda item number 8 be handled as a separate item tonight.
All right. We can do that. Would anybody from the public care to speak on the consent calendar? All right. So we have, we're going to be voting on the consent calendar, which would consist of items 7 and number 9. Anybody want to have any action?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda items 7 and 9.
We have one question.
Sorry, Councilman.
Okay, sorry.
The question's going to be about our ability to approve minutes for meetings that we were not in attendance at.
Abstain.
Through the mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Minutes are rather unusual in as that much as they're more like a ministerial action. The city council has authority, including new city council members, to approve the minutes. When you approve the minutes, you are not stating that you are a personal eyewitness or attesting to the events that occurred at the meeting. What you're stating is you're approving the clerk's certification of the minutes and making sure they're accurate. As a general rule, the league and everyone else typically recommends that you vote on the minutes unless you're aware of a mistake or something else occurring in the minutes, in which case you should inform the rest of the council and hopefully resolve or address the issue so that the record of the city can be clear. So yes, you can vote on it this evening.
Thank you.
Looking for action.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda items 7 and 9.
I'll second.
Motion is second to approve consent calendar items 7 and 9. All those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
And opposed? And abstentions? All right, passed. Thank you very much. Number 8, we have item number 8. Sutter Buttes Energy Watch Partnership. Thank you, George.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, my name is George Barlow. I'm administrative analyst here at the city. Also, in reference to this item, I'm also the administrative coordinator for the Sutter Buttes Energy Watch. We also have with us Sapphire Marketing Group, Dee Dee, and Carrie. So I can answer any administrative history questions that you may have. Also, we have Sapphire Marketing Group that could answer any accountability questions for the last 2 years of the project.
Mr. Mayor, I'll go ahead and take it since I'm the one that pulled it. Love the idea of this program, but it gets to the ladder of the accountability. I read through the report, and I just had some general concerns that I didn't feel comfortable in letting it just go through the consent agenda. Number one, you said this has been around 2 years. How much in funding have we received over the prior 2 years?
So the prior 2 years, we've received $240,000
Okay.
from PG&E.
Okay. Going through the materials, it specifies what this is to be used for. And coming from the private sector, this talks about using a lot of contractors and licensed contractors. And Sapphire Group is a marketing firm, and it gets very specific in the allocation to how much can be used for marketing and administration. Do we have an accounting of the last 2 years to know that, first of all, how much has been spent with engineering and contractors, or have we just spent $240,000 in marketing? Where have we come? And is the first question. So I'm looking for an accountability to the 240. And then the second question I have is, can Sapphire truly take the lead on this with the contractor relationship there? Does it take someone with a general contractor to oversee the subcontractors? That was missing from the report.
Very good question. So give you a little bit of history how PG&E works in regards of this particular contract and other contract. Some of the language in the contract is broad in nature because of how PG&E sets up this contract. So not only are there marketers involved in this contract, there is also implementers involved. And I can have Carrie speak to her dealings with implementers, but the contract and the way that it's set up is twofold. One for those that are actually implementing, who have engineers, who have implementers that actually install. So that's one aspect of the contract. Our aspect of the contract is actually marketing the program itself. So energy efficiency needs to businesses in regards of lighting retrofits, HVAC, those type of things.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, it's just, what I do for a living. Going through this report, let's talk about the current year. It's got the $60,500. It talks about marketing over in the reports at a figure of around $9,900. It talks about some implementation fees that can be charged as not the entire 60, and this is my exact concern. So, Carrie, would you or Dee Dee be able to answer questions as far as how have you allocated and spent the resources that we've acquired? We've had over 240, and how many people have we actually reached with this, and have we spent 240 strictly on marketing, or that's what's missing?
The 240 is what we were approved for in the grant funding, essentially, from PG&E. We have not spent all of it over the last 2 years. The first year, our focus was on small and medium businesses. And then this year, the 2018 year, PG&E shifted the focus where we're working with local government agencies to really reduce their energy footprint. And so this year, our focus has been on building relationships with local government agencies in Yuba, Sutter, and Colusa counties. And it goes even above and beyond the implementation of the fixtures. But next year, or in 2019, December 31st, 2019, every municipality has to comply with Assembly Bill 32. And we can do work on that and bring all of those municipalities into compliance with Assembly Bill 32 by December 31st. So that's another project we're working on. Does that answer your question? It's not just implementation, but it's also education.
Okay, we're getting closer. So you've got the education component that's part of the 240 plus the 60. Or we got 300 total, or is it 240 total?
Well, 240 was allocated by PG&E, but not all of those funds were spent.
Okay. Is any of the 240, and I realize that we're just the trustee, the conduit for this, is that being used for the small to medium businesses to actually retrofit and get more energy efficient, for the municipalities to offset their cost, or is it all strictly marketing, education, awareness? That's what I'm trying to wrap my head around, because it seems like this should be to offset some of the hard costs, not just in education and a marketing.
to answer your question, that is for the outreach. And also in the upcoming year, we've broken it down, and I'll tell you what the tasks are. So the first task is really lead generation, and that's developing those contacts. So this year, our focus was on lighting, getting the long halogen tubes upgraded to LED, and really reducing their dependence on traditional energy. But there are other things we can do with municipalities. PG&E offers 0% on-bill financing. For example, I've been working with the city of Marysville, and as we know, they're in a historic building. Their city hall is in a historic building, and they have a lead problem in their building because they have the original window panes. So we can help them get in contact with the right people from PG&E. They can get their windows upgraded. It's an energy efficiency project, and we can finance that on their bill at 0% on-bill financing. So it's not just, it's more than just marketing. It's also being that communications conduit between PG&E and the municipality.
Okay, thank you. That answers most of my questions.
But I can lay out our tasks for the upcoming year for you if you'd like.
For now, I'm good. I would just ask in the future, since this, Mr. Mayor, has been going on for 2 years, could we have a financial accountability in 6 months to 12 months when this comes back before, so we know how the funds that we've been the conduit as the city has been entrusted with has actually been used versus just the proposed stuff that's here? Can we actually get an accountability report?
Is that a possibility?
We provide an accountability monthly to the city and to PG&E, so that would not be a problem. I can get that well, George has it, so he can provide it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Looking for action.
Through the mayor, I'll allow our councilman Shaw to motion since you had the conversation on it.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I move that we, I got to change my wording now. That we go with staff recommendations on agenda item 8 and authorize the city manager to sign a contract with PG&E to receive funding for the Sutter Buttes Energy Watch program. B, award a professional services agreement to Sapphire Marketing Group not to exceed $60,500. C, authorize the finance director to record a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $66,500 to accounts 212-4720 and 6810-62701, with the finding that is in the best interest of the city. And I'd like to add condition D, that we have a financial report back in 6 months.
All right. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second for ABC with the additional of the D finance report 6 months, which I'm assuming you do monthly anyway? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Number 10, under general items, groundwater well abatement phase, project 1. Diana, or excuse me, it has Ben down here, but you're much prettier.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Ben would like to be here tonight. He's tonight at the Board of Supervisors meeting celebrating his father-in-law's last meeting. So he's at a good location, excuse me. So I am Diana Langley, the Public Works Director. I'm excited to be before you tonight. The item before you is groundwater well abandonments, the Phase 1 project, approval plans and specifications. And so the city complies with the public contract code, and for projects over a certain threshold, we're required to bring the plans and specifications to council for approval. And what that does is it allows us to go out to bid for the project. So some background on the project. The Hillcrest Water Company was purchased in 2001. The Hillcrest Water Company served the Tierra Buena area and then the, I'll call it the general Yuba City area south of Franklin Road. There were 16 groundwater wells that were part of that company, and all wells have been deactivated at this time, and 3 were abandoned in 2016. We recently are in the current state of finalizing our water master plan update, which recommends abandonment of 10 wells due to poor water quality, infrastructure age, and improvement treatment costs. And we're proposing to split the abandonment of the wells between 2 phases. So to give you kind of background on the locations. So well 21 was abandoned in 2016. Well 16 and 17 is in the Darrow Drive area. And that is a lot that could be developable in terms of a future single-family site. Well site 18 is located at Jefferson and Royal Ranchero, also another site that we think could be considered developable. Well site 19 is at Jefferson and Stonegate, the T intersection of Jefferson and Stonegate. There's a little bit of question as to whether or not this one could be developable. It's an irregular kind of triangular shaped lot, so it might require a little bit of modification to make it developable in the future. Well site 20 is on Williamsburg Drive. It's a developable lot. And then well site 22 is on Quail Point Drive. It's a smaller lot. It may be developable, but we have received a request from the adjacent property owner that they would like the ability to purchase the property. Now going to well site south of Franklin. Well sites 2 and 14 were abandoned in 2016. Well site 13 is located on Dean Drive. It's a very, very small site that splits 2 parcels. And so when the well's abandoned, most likely the property will just revert back to the adjacent property owners. Plant number 1 is well site number 3. It's located on Cresswell Drive. There are considerable site facilities on not only this site, but also plant number 2. That's why we're proposing to take care of these as part of phase 2. It's just the scope of work is much greater in terms of removing tanks, doing on-site remediation, clearing the site, and getting it ready for future either development or disposal. And then we're recommending to maintain well sites 5, 8, and 9. Those are wells that if in case of an emergency we needed to get additional water supply, while it's not very much, they could be recommissioned and brought back into service. And so at this point in time, we're recommending to keep them, and then we can utilize, potentially utilize them in the future. So again, the project overview, the phase 1 abandonment includes the well sites that I showed. The phase 2 abandonment will include well sites 3, 4, and 7. And so those are the 2 plant sites that are considerably more work. And so what we're proposing to do is once we abandon the phase 1 wells, we would return to council with proposed actions and direction to divest those sites. And then the phase 1 engineer's estimate is $370,000. There's currently a project in the capital improvement program with funds budgeted for this project. The proposed timeline is to advertise for bids this summer, award the contract early spring of next year, and construct in spring with completion of summer 2019. So the recommendation before you tonight is to adopt a resolution approving the plans and specifications for the project and authorizing advertisement for bids on the project. I would like to note that the phase 2 project is currently estimated about $500,000. And so one of the things that when we bring forward divestment of those other sites as part of phase 1 is reutilizing that money to help fund phase 2. And so time frame for phase 2 at this point is not specified because we need to abandon the other sites completely and then make a recommendation and get direction from council as to what to do with those sites. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
No questions? Would anybody from the public like to speak on the issue? If so, please step forward and give your name and address. Nobody? All right. You sure? Hot topic. All right, Dave. Your last chance. All right, looking for action back from the council, please.
Through the mayor.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to adopt a resolution approving the plan specifications for the groundwater well abandonment phase 1 project and authorize advertisements for bids on the project.
Anybody going to second?
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve staff's recommendation. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Diana.
Thank you, Diana.
Item number 11, the annual investment policy adoption. Ms. Spencer, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Spencer Morrison, the city treasurer. Tonight I am bringing before you the annual investment policy update. So in Yuba City, the city treasurer is an elected position with a stipend of $900 per year, and which is the same as the city clerk. I am 2 years into my second four-year term. I just thought I would give you a little background as we get started here. Charged with the deposit and safekeeping of city funds, I oversee the deposits for the city's pooled cash as well as custodial accounts, which hold bonds, reserves, debt service, account balances, and project funds related to bonds and leases, for example. The Treasury is important because a portion of it is required by bond covenant or due to a trust or agency relationship, and it helps the cash flow in general government. For instance, one of the largest general fund expenditures, salary and benefits, is paid evenly throughout the fiscal year, while one of the largest general fund revenues, property tax, is received primarily in February and May. The treasurer invests the excess funds from one period until is needed in a subsequent period, and utilizing investment advisors, independent of any brokerage houses, to make best practices and investment recommendations and the execution of trades. All funds, aside from the checking account, are invested and in investments permissible by government code and the city's investment policy, with the emphasis of safety, liquidity, and yield in that order. I will review and update the investment policy annually and bring it forward for council's approval. Again, annually, we'll be bringing this policy forward. It's reviewed by staff and the investment advisors. The investment advisors are PFM, Public Financial Management, and Insight Investments, which is now a subsidiary of Bank of New York Mellon. And the government code section, it's government code that makes it necessary for me to bring this forward each year, and the section is 53646A1. There are two recommended updates. Page 7 of the policy is where they're found. And these updates will increase the pool of qualifying investments in the asset-backed securities market and allowing them to be, changing the language from 5-year maturity to 5-year remaining maturity. And this new language will allow an increase in the pool of investments because it opens up the market just a little bit by the change in that language. And that's a government code change, Assembly Bill 1770. This new language as far as the rating goes, it eliminates the A issuer requirement, leaving only AA or better. And this language is a result of simplification and better matches the investment grade with which the city is comfortable. That's really what I have for you today. So staff recommendation is to approve the investment policy as amended, and I'm happy to address your questions at this time.
All right. Any questions of council?
No, sir.
No, sir. Oh, we got one.
Through the mayor. I have a question. How long have we been utilizing Public Financial Management and Insight Finance as our advisors?
I can only go back 15 2/3 years. But as long as I've been here, we've been using PFM as one of the investment advisors.
Mm-hmm.
And the Insight Investment used to be called Cutwater, and before it was purchased by Bank of New York Mellon, it was called MBIA. And so that company, though it's changed names, we've been using it for quite some time. And I don't know if the prior city treasurer has any insight on how long we've been.
I don't. I believe it was probably in the last 12 to 15 years.
How often are you meeting with them?
I have contact with them, not a meeting, when they're recommending trades. So
Okay.
as a bond is getting ready to mature, they'll contact me and say, this bond's getting ready to mature, and we've got these options for you to consider to replace that bond in the investment portfolio. They tend to reach out to me maybe twice a year for a face-to-face, and they often are at a conference that the finance director and I attend in the late winter.
So the proposal today is just simply to meet the new guidelines. That's all we're changing on the policy, correct?
That's correct. So each year in the fall, I reach out to the investment advisors and say, here's last year's investment policy. Please take a look and see if you see anything where we're out of compliance or if laws have changed.
Okay.
They're very well versed at that.
Good. Sounds like you're doing a good job. Thank you.
Well, thank you for saying so.
All right, back to council for action.
Well, I motion that we adopt the investment policy as presented.
There you go. You have a second.
I'll second.
All right, motion and a second to approve the new investment policy as amended. I'm assuming that's what you meant, as amended, presented? All those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Before we do that, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. Would we be able to take this out for public comment?
Yes, we may.
Thank you.
Force a habit. Eventually, you'll train me effectively. Anybody in public care to comment on the item? All right. Now may we vote. Signify by saying aye if you approve.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Robin, item number 12, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, affectionately known as the CAFR.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm just getting started.
All right.
In October, I provided City Council with a detailed financial report with regard to our results of financial operations from fiscal year 17-18. That report was based upon pre-audit data. I'm pleased to say that the only change made to the city's general fund, the chief operating fund for the city, was a minor adjustment of less than $100. The city has an independent audit conducted on an annual basis. The resulting CAFR, Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, and related single audit report are then submitted to the City Council for review and acceptance. This year is the second year that the firm of Badawi and Associates has conducted the city's independent annual audit. The city goes out to bid periodically for audit services to ensure that we receive competitively priced services and to periodically change auditors in order to obtain a different fresh perspective and an evaluation of the city's financial activities and internal controls. The CAFR presented to you this evening contains an unqualified opinion, meaning that our financial statements are fairly presented. This is the best or highest opinion that a city can receive. As it relates to the single audit report, there are no areas identified where improvement was recommended. There were 3 prior year recommendations, so the auditors provide a status update on those. And their comments and findings as it relates to those 3 prior year recommendations is that the city appropriately implemented all the recommendations and took corrective action. What this means from city staff's perspective, we have a very clean audit and our internal controls are functioning as anticipated and expected. With that, I would like to bring up Ahmed Badawi. He's a partner with Badawi and Associates. He has a presentation to review with you all and give you some of the highlights of our city CAFR and answer questions. Either he or I could answer any questions you might have. Thank you. Ahmed, please come on up.
Thank you. Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and member of the audience. I am Ahmed Badawi. I was the audit partner on the audit for the city of Yuba City, and I will be presenting to you the results today. So I'm going to start first by letting you know what I'm going to cover today. I'll let you know who the engagement team was, what were our deliverables and the scope of our audit, areas we emphasized on during our audit process, the type of opinion we issued, and summarize for you some of the numbers in your financial statements. I will provide you some of the required communication as your independent auditors. and give you a brief update of the new accounting standards and see if you have any questions for me. So the engagement team, that was the composition of our engagement team. I was the engagement partner. We always have a quality control reviewer. That individual is in the background, so no interaction directly with the city. Her role is to review my work and making sure that we adhere to professional standards. We had a manager assigned on the engagement, Mitesh Desai. Mitesh is actually a partner of our firm, but he's been acting in a manager capacity on the City of Yuba City's audit. We have an IT specialist that we use to evaluate the city's computer system, and we had 2 professional staff also assigned to the audit. In terms of the deliverables, we were mainly engaged to provide an opinion on the city's basic financial statements. That is the CAFR, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. Because the city is subject to what we call government auditing standards, we are also required to issue an opinion on our consideration of internal control over financial reporting and on compliance, which we did as well. The city is a recipient of federal funds, which requires a compliance audit, what we refer to as a single audit. So we have performed that and issued an opinion on compliance with those federal awards. We perform an agreed upon procedures on the appropriation limit, the GAN limit, which sets limitations on how much the city can budget out of tax revenue every year. And then finally, the communication with the governing body, which is what I'm doing today, and we normally also issue a letter summarizing this communication, and it's addressed to the council. In terms of areas of primary audit emphasis, I do want to highlight first that those are not necessarily unique to Yuba City. They tend to be areas of higher risk in almost every audit that we do, and Yuba City is no exception. The first area is revenues and receivables. In any audit, we always make the assumption that people tend to like to have more revenues and less expenditures. So the motivation is always there to overstate the revenues, understate the expenditures. In the government operation, we find getting comfortable with revenues is actually not a very complicated thing. We send communications or confirmations to outside parties. We confirm with the county all the revenues that were submitted to the city, and we reconcile them to the city's records. We confirm with the state all the sales tax, and we send a variety of confirmations to many other parties, in addition to testing of license permits and fees and many other procedures. On the proprietary activities, we do a lot of analytics. We look at consumption, we look at rates, we try to extrapolate the revenues, we do ratio analysis, and investigate any unusual or unexpected fluctuation. The second area of focus was the pension and OPEB. OPEB is the retiree medical benefits. Those areas involve a lot of complex accounting. Also, the dollar amount is very significant. And it relies on the use of actuaries and a variety of other things. So we communicate with the auditors of the CalPERS plan. We obtain audit opinion from them on how much money the city have invested with CalPERS, and also we do testing of the census data, which is the raw data that the city submit to CalPERS on a regular basis, and they use to develop those actuarial studies. And we do testing of contributions and a variety of other things. And then finally, management overriding controls. This is, again, a risk that always exists. Management are the one responsible for developing and implementing those controls, and they can choose to override them at any time. Of course, they're not allowed to, and nothing came to our attention that indicate that this has occurred, but we develop audit procedures to try to mitigate that risk and bring it to an acceptable risk level, basically. So we try to incorporate an element of unpredictability in our audit procedures. We test journal entries prepared by management. We review management estimates, making sure that they are free of bias, and a variety of other things that we will perform as well. Like Robin mentioned, we have issued an unmodified opinion. Unmodified opinion means it's a standard opinion. Unfortunately, in our industry, we cannot issue what we call great opinions and say, oh, the city did fantastic. So it's either you get the standard opinion, or we start modifying it to address issues and problems. So the city has received the unmodified opinion. The opinion stated that the audit was performed in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and government auditing standards. And an unmodified opinion means that the financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects, that all accounting principles have been consistently applied, that all estimates are reasonable, and that all disclosures are properly reflected in the financial statements. Wanted to summarize for you some of the numbers in your financial statements. Please keep in mind that this is a 30,000-foot view. We're not really drilling into your individual funds. But if we look at the city in total, this is the composition of the city's assets over the last 3 years. And like almost every single city we audit, the two largest assets are cash and investments and capital assets. That is expected. Cities maintain a certain cash balance to ensure continuity of operation and being able to respond in emergencies. And of course, you're always doing street work and infrastructure and other things. So those are expected to be the two largest assets, and that's the case with Yuba City. The next slide is focusing more on the liabilities. And you will see here that the two largest liabilities are your pension liabilities and your what we call the long-term debt, which normally are your bonds and long-term loans and capital leases, those types of standard debt. Also, the city this year has implemented new standards for the retiree medical benefits, which what we call the net OPEB liability. So that $3 million is the unfunded portion of the retiree medical benefits. I would say that the only one that deserves mentioning, but we're going to have a few slides about, is net pension liability. That's the one that had the biggest increase. And I'll provide more detail in the next coming slides. This slide just takes the city's assets minus liabilities. That's your equity. And we divide the equity into multiple categories. The purpose is to let the reader know whether those are spendable or not spendable, restricted or not restricted. So the first category, the net investment in capital asset, that is not really in a spendable form and most likely would never be in a spendable form. This is the money that the city invested in your streets and roads and infrastructure. Then you have all these restricted amounts, and they are either restricted by grant agreements, by bond agreements, by the state if you're receiving gas tax and those types of revenues. And then finally, the unrestricted is the amount that is under the council control. That amount have no outside legal restriction. I'm sure that you have already designated it for other purposes, but we're just highlighting that you can change that if you choose to do so. The next slide is really taking the city's revenues minus expenses. Keep in mind this is on a full accrual basis, so it's a different type of accounting than what the general fund would use. So I would just, we always get a little hesitant with including that slide because we don't want you to read too much into it. It does fluctuate sometimes. For example, that big increase from last year to the current year is a result of the city receiving a large amount of grants in the street fund that had made that number look that much higher than last year. That doesn't mean that the city would be receiving those types of grants every year at that level. This slide is focusing on what we call the net cost of service to tax revenue. So the net cost of service is taking all city departments, how much it costs to run these departments, and we subtract from that any revenues that those departments are able to generate on their own. So that can be either fines, fees, charges for services, or grants that they received to be used on their program. And the idea is to see how dependent are these departments on tax revenues. Of course, every department is dependent on tax revenue. The purpose of this slide is to show you whether your tax revenues are sufficient to cover the net cost of service or not. So this year, again, a big change compared to the prior years. Prior years, your cost of service always been higher than the net cost, than the tax revenues, and that usually is due to spending down fund balance that you accumulated in the past, maybe on projects. But this year is different, again, because of those grant revenues that went and reduced the net cost of service significantly. So that's the reason for 2018. If we were to just focus on your general fund, obviously the general fund is a measurement of the city's liquidity. This is where most of your unrestricted resources reside. So what we do is we take your unrestricted fund balance and we compare that to your annual expenditures. The idea is to see in the very, very unlikely scenario that all your revenue sources stop coming in, how long can you continue to pay your bills? And we have determined that you probably can continue to pay your bills about 2 months. The minimum recommended ratio by the Government Finance Officers Association is 2 to 4 months. So you're definitely hovering around that lower end of the range, and it's something that we keep an eye on. But in the meantime, The city also have funds in the internal service funds, and those are also unrestricted resources and can eventually be used. So we're not totally alarmed, I guess, what I'm trying to say about that. If we want to focus on pension, so this is a summary of the city's contribution to CalPERS over the last 3 years. So you can see the trajectory is that it is going up every year, and the expectation is that it will continue to go up. If we look at the funded status of the plans, so that's the funded status of the city's safety plan, police and fire, and as of the most recent measurement date or valuation date, which is the bottom line, you will see that the city had about $102 million invested with CalPERS, had about almost $140 million liability, and that left the city with about $37 million unfunded liability. Same scenario for the miscellaneous plan. You will see that the unfunded liability for the miscellaneous plan is close to $39 million, $38.5 million. One very important thing that I want to highlight is that these numbers are really just a big estimate. And the estimate is developed by CalPERS actuaries based on a set of assumptions that some of them can be significant and some are not very significant. So the most significant assumption is what we call the discount rate. So currently, or the numbers that we reported in the financial statements are prepared using a 7.65 discount rate. So the idea of this slide is to show you where your numbers would be if the discount rate goes up by 1% or down by 1%. So if it goes up by 1% to 8.65, your total liability for both plans will actually go down by about $30 million. If it goes down and we use a 6.65 rate of return or discount rate, your liability goes up from $75 million to $113 million. So it's a big change, and obviously that's the reason why we're highlighting how significant this assumption is. We know that CalPERS is reducing the discount rate. They haven't gotten to 6.65 yet, but definitely they're on their way. So I know for the most recent one, it's now at 7%, so that's going to automatically increase the city's liability, and then if they decrease the discount rate more, then we will see more increases. Another benefit that the city offers are the retiree medical benefits. So this is the contribution to the plan over the last 3 years, and the contributions can be in the form of benefit payments or contribution to the trust. The funded status of the plan. So this is really a very small plan compared to a city like Yuba City. So I guess it's a good thing for the city that you don't have such a big liability. And the city has started to put money away in a trust, and that's why you see that $242,000. So the city is taking action to try to address that liability as well. This liability is also an estimate, and it's dependent on some assumptions. So again, the discount rate is a significant assumption in estimating that liability. So the idea is to show you what your liability would look like if the discount rate goes up by 1% or down by 1%. Another important assumption in the retiree medical benefits are what we call the healthcare trends, or how more expensive health premiums are going to be in the future. So again, the idea is to show you how much your liability would be if those assumptions go up by 1% or down by 1%. This next part are the required communications as your independent auditors. So excuse me if I end up reading the slides, but there's just really it's language that we have to communicate to you. So on the left side of this slide, you will see our responsibility as your independent auditors. We're mainly responsible for issuing an opinion on the basic financial statements. We're responsible for evaluating internal control, including the tone at the top and making sure that management is sending the right message to the rest of the organization about importance of controls, consequences of committing fraud, and so on. We're responsible for evaluating compliance with laws and regulations, for making sure your financial statements are clear and transparent. So not just complying with the accounting standards, but also if we feel that maybe you did comply with the accounting standard, but it's still not very clear and we think it may be confusing to the reader, we will definitely ask the city to add more clarification there. And then finally, we are responsible for communicating with the governing body, which is what I'm doing today. Management have a lot of responsibilities in this audit process. So the fact that you hired our firm to certify the number does not relieve management or the city council from its responsibility towards the completeness and accuracy of those financials. Our audit only provides reasonable assurance because we do on a test basis. We have materiality level. We don't look at every $5,000 or $10,000 that the city is spending. The city is also responsible for establishing and maintaining internal controls, for making financial records available to us during the audit process, for establishing controls to prevent and detect fraud, inform us of all known and suspected fraud, comply with laws and regulations, and take corrective action on any audit findings. In terms of independence, we have to maintain our independence from the city. This is solely our responsibility. We look at independence in a variety of ways. So, for example, we look at our staff and we circulate questionnaires asking them to identify any direct or indirect relations with the city or city staff. We immediately remove those individuals from the audit. We evaluate any additional services that we offer the city and make sure that it does not impair our independence. So, for example, we assist the city in compiling the financial statements. So we have to put procedures in place to make sure that we're not the one developing the numbers, that we're taking the city's numbers and just putting them into that format. Also, we look at independence from appearance. We want to make sure that we retain the public trust. So we don't want to look that our relationship with city management is just very close, that can raise questions. So we try to avoid situations like that. In terms of timing of the audit, we believe that the audit was performed timely in accordance with our engagement letter. In terms of significant accounting policies, so those were the new accounting standards that were due to be implemented this year. So we have discussed with the city and determined which ones are applicable, which ones are not, and made sure that the city have done the proper implementation. Like I mentioned earlier, some of the numbers are estimated numbers and not actual numbers. So this is a listing of some of those numbers in your financial statements that are based on estimates. I'm not going to read this for you, but these are some of the important disclosures in the financial statements that I believe it enhanced the reader's understanding of some of the numbers. We're pleased to say that we encountered no difficulties during the audit. It was actually very pleasant working with the city. City staff were very responsive. We really didn't have any difficulties. There were some adjustments, like Robin mentioned, very minor, and management has posted those adjustments. There were no significant risk or exposure that were identified to us other than the standard legal matters. We're pleased to report that we had no disagreement with management. We had no material weaknesses in internal controls. We obtained certain representation from management dated December 5th. Those representations normally say management telling us that they have taken responsibility for the financials, that they have no plan on selling city assets, and they recorded all transactions and so forth. We're not aware that management has engaged any other accounting firm to consult on audit matters. Other than our engagement letter and the representation letter, we had no additional communication with management. There were no material uncertainties relating to events and conditions, and we have not become aware of any fraud or illegal act. This is a listing of the new accounting standards that will be coming your way. Every year we discuss with management and make sure that they are aware of what's going to take to implement those standards. Then finally, more than happy to answer any questions you have. I do want to thank you for the opportunity to provide audit service for the city.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Would anybody from the public like to speak on the item? If so, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. None. All right. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. It's back to council for action.
Through the mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, you're going to do a motion, correct? Vice Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make some comments before we go to action. Sure. First of all, good job to our team. As I was sharing with Robin earlier, I know the full effect because of my profession in getting the, as I call it, the no management letter, meaning everything is good. Means we're doing things in accordance with GAP internally. So good job, Robin, to you and your team. What I take away from this, Mr. Mayor, and we're getting ready to go into the season to where we prepare our next budget coming up in early spring, is we're not in bad shape, but we need to be a little healthier. And I'd like to see those reserves be moved from 1.1. We need to really set a goal to try to get our reserves up to that 3 mark, 3 months. That's advice I would give any company that I'm working with, to be stronger in that. And then I'd also like to, in future meetings, for us to start thinking a little bit outside of the box with what we can do with PERS, because you can see how volatile it is, sir, with the interest rate fluctuating by 1%. And the way things are going right now in our markets and with the everything that's overall, we need to bank on that rate moving more down towards that 6.65. So I'd just like for us to think outside of the box going forward.
And that would be a continued thinking process. We've been trying to do that a lot, and we're always opening suggestions you may bring forward. All right. Any other comments? All right, looking for any action? on this
Okay,
item?
through the mayor.
Sure.
Like to accept the annual financial report and related adult reports for the fiscal year ending of June 30th, 2018.
I second.
All right, motion and second to approve the CAFR report. All those in favor? Aye, please.
Aye.
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 Opposed? That's right. Very good. Thank you very much again. Item number 13, looks like Mr. Gale, interim director, deputy city manager on here, interim director of developmental services, AB 1600.
Right.
The good news on 1600.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. I'm here before you this evening to present to recommend the adoption of a resolution and authorize the mayor to sign a development impact fee collection agreement that would be between the city and the county. Real briefly very, very briefly as it relates to impact fees. Impact fees are overseen by a state law called AB 1600. Both the city and the county go through a process to adopt impact fees. And at a future meeting, we can go into the details of exactly how impact fees are adopted and specifically how the city's impact fees were adopted. In this case, the city actually has a sphere of influence, which takes in this whole map. However, our city limits are that little tiny line. I guess it's not the best. So anyways, our city limits are smaller, right, than our sphere of influence. And our impact fees are based upon the build out of the entire sphere of influence. And so the city and county have worked together, and the county collects the city impact fee within our sphere of influence. Outside that, the county collects their impact fee. Additionally, the city collects a fee for the county, and that pays for certain county facilities, criminal justice, their general facilities. There's 3 items and levies. So this has gone on for many years, well over a decade. And for the last few years, there has not been the exchange of funds that the city has collected for the county and the county has collected for the city. And the county has asked us to enter into an agreement. This agreement was presented before the Board of Supervisors at their December 4th meeting, and it was unanimously approved. If the council were to move forward with this agreement, which is not agreeing to what the fee amounts are, but if we adopted this, the city and county would then exchange the funds that we've collected to date. And then in the future, on an annual basis, those funds would be transferred back and forth between the city and county. In very, very rough numbers, we've collected over $1 million in fees for the county, and they've collected in the $700,000 to $800,000 for the city. Impact fees are used for the one-time cost of new development on the community. So for example, you have a police station, and there's been a calculation of what size of station you need to provide services for the residents. And as a new person comes to the community, there's been a calculation of how that's been determined. The impact fees that the county are collecting for us just to put them out there, is a fire protection road, Parks and Rec, and levy. And what we collect for the county is general government, criminal justice, and health and social services. So that's those are the fees that we collect. Again, tonight the action is to adopt the resolution and allow the mayor to sign an agreement between the city and county. We can then transfer the funds that we have, which we can actually already do today, but we were waiting on the county to adopt this, so that they'll transfer our funds. And then on an annual basis, it'll set up a process that we provide an accounting of what fees we collected, and then we will transfer those funds on an annual basis. So I can answer any questions that the city council might have.
Very good.
Through the mayor, not necessarily related to the matter at hand, but just curious when we might be taking a look again at the AB 1600 fees.
So we were talking in possibly January of next year, I was going to say this year, of having a special workshop with the city council. I'll work with the city clerk to identify a date. This was a discussion we actually had today, and so hopefully we can find a date that works for the entire city council, and we'll have a consultant come in and describe how the impact fees are put together, have the discussion of updating the impact fees, what would that impact have. So that's something we want to do in January, council member.
Thank you.
Through the mayor, so on the same relation of the impact fees, once we have that conversation, how often are they reviewed or updated by our staff besides the council?
So it just depends. Historically, what cities have done is a large portion of our impact fees are transportation based. So if you would update your traffic model within your general plan, you'd want to go back and update your impact fees. There have been times throughout, I think the last time we updated was 2008. 2008, there have been times that items have been brought back before the city council where the fees have been adjusted. But that's up to the city council, can ask for that. Obviously, it's at any time. But the last time that there was a comprehensive update was 2008. Historically, they're usually done around general plan changes, comprehensive general plan updates, or major elements that dictate what the fees are, or that would change what those fees are.
Thank you.
Question? I think that's a great place to start, Darren, is where you just mentioned the workshop in January. It gives us a foundation of what the fees are, why they are, and what our options may be moving forward. So I think that's a great first step. So thank you for that suggestion. Looking for action from anybody.
I motion that we adopt the resolution and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement.
I'll second.
All right. Motion is second to approve staff recommendation.
Through the mayor.
I'm sorry, would anybody like to comment on that?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
No. No, I'm sorry. Thank you for that. Force of habit. Yes? Yes, sir, come on forward. We'll get that down eventually. Yeah.
Okay. I had a simple question. Why can't the county collect their own fees and the city collect their own fees?
That's a very good question. Darren, would you mind answering that?
Customer service.
There you
We'd
go.
rather not send people to two different facilities. We can collect the fees right here. And it's a great partnership between the city and county.
Very good. Does that answer your question, sir? And question I had real quick, and thank you for the opportunity for Mr. Byrne to speak. The agreement is simply memorializing and formalizing what we're doing anyway. Is that correct? Nothing's
Correct.
different. All right. Fair enough. How far did we get? We had a motion and a second?
We did.
All right. Anybody in favor? We're all in favor? All right. Thank you, Darren. Appreciate it.
Wait, we have.
What? Go ahead.
Aye.
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 All right. Let's see. Number 14. Do we have a slide for that? No. We don't? Okay. So basically, you folks all have in your packets the community assignments. For those who don't understand or aren't familiar with what we're voting on here, we're City Council, by virtue of our positions here on your City Council, there are various boards and commissions that all of us take part in or become members of. I've gone through the list, talked to some personal preferences, some backgrounds, weighed the options, and made some assignments for primary and alternate members of those various boards and commissions. There's about a dozen or more of them. And so that's what we're voting on today, is saying that they approve of their assignments that I've made. So that's simply it.
Okay. Through the mayor.
Yes.
Approve the mayor's assignments to regional boards and committees for 2018-19.
Would anybody care to comment on the mayor's regional committee assignments? All right. Do we have any motion?
Say it again.
Do we have a motion?
Yeah, okay. Approve the mayor's assignments to regional boards and committees for year 2018-19.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Very good. On to City Council reports. We'll start with Councilmember Baumgarten. This is essentially an opportunity for council members to describe and make any general comments they've done, primarily based upon their attendance at their various community and committee assignments, boards and commissions, if you will. And that is it. So basically what you've done and the results of it, and just report back on what you've done out there. So, Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been a wild first couple of weeks. Being a firefighter, I have drank out of the fire hose, and I can tell you that this is like drinking out of a fire hose again. Really quickly, I don't want to go into a day-to-day or anything like that, but I did have the opportunity to be briefed by the executive administrator for Sabufka, which is one of the committees that the Sutter Buttes Flood Control Agency, and attended the meeting there. I also want to thank Chief Landon for an orientation at the police department. It was wonderful, not enough time, but hopefully we can get back to you. Thank you. Diana, also Public Works Director, another excellent orientation. I appreciate the time. Also the City Attorney, Shannon, thank you very much for your patience with a lot of questions. The only thing that I would like to find out is if it's possible for when there's a PowerPoint presentation, can we get that in our agenda packets? It's tough for us older folks to take a peek up there and see the micro font.
So believe it or not, the point's already been raised with staff, and your next meeting will provide for PowerPoint on your laptops and your iPads, yes.
I'll close with, thank you. I'll close with wishing everybody a Merry Christmas and a safe holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Espindola. Front page of the paper.
Thank you. I haven't attended any meetings yet. Those will happen next month. But there's quite a few to go to, and I'm looking forward to that. I appreciate all the holiday cards, Christmas cards, going really nicely. Thank you for that. We've met with a lot of our team already. It's exciting to meet everyone, the different department heads, line staff. We went to the Public Works, and we had an opportunity to really listen to our line staff describe how they utilize and do different equipment. And so I think it was great, and Mark and I attended that, and it was great to actually see them present and demonstrate to us. And hopefully I will be doing some ride-alongs with Public Works. So yeah, I'm ready to fix some of our roads if you need any help there. But we also ended up, with the chief, Landon, and gone to the police department, fire, and with Darren, had a great conversation. And with our manager, city manager, Steve, has been extremely helpful as we're transitioning, and so has the entire team, Terrell, Judy. There's been so much help in the process of this transition, and I'm really thankful for that. Thanks, and Shannon. We are going to make an excellent team. I get that. One of the ones that I just want to, it's not on a committee, but I'm sure our mayor and vice mayor will talk about it, or maybe not. Big Lots. We went to the reopening of the Big Lots store, and it was really interesting to see how the time that they took to redesign their store, and to find out that 26 people are employed from our community at Big Lots, and I really enjoyed being part of that. But as the other committees start taking, yeah, if you don't know, Big Lots is a cool store to go to. I'm not promoting anything, okay? Anyway, I have nothing to do with it. But I will present from the other committees in the future with some details. And if you have questions of me anytime, please approach me. I'd be more than happy to listen to you and work with you. So thank you.
Do you remember what they said that they sell more of than Target and Walmart?
They sell more mattresses, furniture, and seasonal items than any other retail store in the country, actually. So they're pretty, yes.
Pretty amazing.
They're pretty amazing. They've gotten some really cool holiday seasonal items if you haven't bought your holiday items. So go check out Big Lots. That's one of the cool things we got to do.
But you're not promoting.
I'm not promoting.
It's all good. Councilmember Shaw.
Mr. Mayor, I've had a great transition the last few weeks, and I will start off because I see some silver hair around. You guys will remember this from the old days of Super Bowl, probably 12, 13, and 14. What are you going to do when you win the election? I went to Disneyland, so I wasn't around. No, before I left, I had great meetings with our team here, our staff. Thank you, Steve, Shannon, Judy, Terrell. Thank you guys for the information and helping us transition so smoothly. Probably the highlight of what I was able to do just over the past few weeks, because I've been gone half of it, was I had the opportunity to serve our first responders, and saw you guys out there as well. And that was very honoring because they serve us all year long and they're there when we need them. So I was just very privileged to be there. My committee assignments will be at the transit agency. It's either tomorrow or Thursday afternoon. So mine start right out of the chute, and I look forward to the year ahead and reporting back on the great things that we're going to do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Thank you. Vice Mayor Cardoza.
All right. Light 2 weeks for meetings. I had a regional housing authority building better partnerships. We just updated contracts for 2018, 2019 for the community, housing in the community. Attended the Center Buttes Flood Control Agency with the mayor. We attended the Regional Homeless Strategic Planning Workshop with Councilwoman Espindola and city staff. We're getting our plan set for 2019 to help take care of the homeless issue in our community, looking forward to getting things better than what it is right at the moment. For city and community events, I attended the Yuba City Police Department Citizens Academy graduation with the mayor and council. Had coffee with the cop at Sutter Buttes Insurance with the mayor. And this weekend, I was out at the sobriety checkpoint on Sutter Street with our police officers. It was a quiet night on Sutter Street until I said, "This is a dead street." And
observing, not driving.
yeah. Hey. Oh, yeah. No. Anyway, I made a comment as to Sutter Street. This is a quiet street. We're not going to be busy tonight. Just then, the bridge had a wreck, and all the traffic came through us. So it was a fun night. Attended Reefs Cross America with the mayor at the Yuba City Cemetery and staff. The mayor and I, the Chief Landon, and a few of our police department staff. We attended a 30th annual VIP luncheon at King Avenue School. We served lunch to the students and parents. Like Councilmember Espindola said, we attended the Big Lot store ribbon cutting. Attended the Good Seed Church 20th annual early free Xmas dinner with Councilmember Espindola. Attended the kids' Christmas party at the Sutter County Museum. We had pictures with Santa here at City Hall with all council there. Had pictures with the entire council. Was hosted, we had the Yuba City Fire Department and the Firefighters Association. They hosted the Breakfast with Santa, the Mel Good Invitational, and Toys for Tots. Council was there. And in closing, I want to invite everybody to the 2019 Polar Bear Plunge, which is going to be at the Gap at 9 a.m. January 1st. The doors open at 8:30. It's this year the big pool is not going to be heated, so it's cold water everywhere. We're hoping for a turnout. It's a little thin right now. It's $25 up till this Friday, and then it's going to be $30 afterwards and $30 opening day. After you jump in, we're going to have warm hot chocolate and goodies afterwards. Like I said, sign-ups are now through. As of Friday, you'll have to go on the internet. You can go on the internet and come into City Hall right now to do it. And then, last but not least, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you next year. Thank you.
All right. I'm going to skip over the things that are already mentioned, with the exception we talked about the Christmas stroll. Of course, we attended that, and I just want to reiterate what a pleasure it was to be a part of that. What a nice, wholesome community event that was. It was really good, and I really appreciate the lot of work that folks put into it. Another highlight was we attended the graduation of Yuba City PD's Citizen Academy. What number was that, Chief? It was up there. It was way up there.
Yeah, you put me on the spot.
I'm sorry.
30 years though.
Over 100. Was it over 100?
I think it was 104, but I'm
100. Yeah, right up there. Citizens Academy. Yeah, that's you're a politician. You should be up here. Get back to me. No, it's it was great. There's folks. Is it 12 weeks? On 12 weeks of education on all things police department related. Very interesting, and we had a lot of people participate in that, and it's really nice to see, especially after so long. So it was a pleasure, and thank you for the invitation to help send those folks with their graduation information. I have some tough shoes to fill in that Councilman Buckland was a member of Sacramento Area Council of Governments down in Sacramento. I filled that position, and so I went to one meeting of a subcommittee down there so far. There's a couple more coming up immediately, so I'm going to assume that role. We talk about drinking from a fire hose. That's definitely the case. But so that is a work in progress, and I'm looking forward to being a part of that conversation. Wreaths Across America, I can't not mention that. What an honor that was to be a part at Yuba City Cemetery. One thing I did not realize, and shame on me for not knowing it, was we have folks who fought in the Civil War buried right over here in Yuba City. That's amazing, isn't it? I didn't know that. So that was an honor to be a part of that and to show respect for those folks. I think once a year isn't often enough. We have other occasions to do so, but it was very nice. The Cub Scouts did a really good job at the Honor Guard, as did our city manager, with some kind words and nice words that he showed respect to those veterans. So other than that, I just repeating, everyone said what we've been to, and that is it for now. We are going to adjourn. Let me back up one thing. Did any member of the public want to comment on? No, I'm just saying. I had an occasion to meet. Of course, we've already toured the departments, but one thing that is new for Vice Mayor and I is our city attorney, and met with Shannon, and it's Chaffin.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to embarrass you, but very impressed. I mean, very squared away, very taking care of business kind of guy. You will notice that the comment over the public comment at the end of every item that we're trying to get used to, there's a purpose behind that. There's some procedural things that maybe we could have some room to kind of fine tune. He's picked those out, and we're gonna modify that. One of those is the fact that we're doing closed session after the meeting instead of before. There's a technicality with noticing protocol that we're adjusting right right now until we can get the books fixed to put it back to where it was previously. So that's why we're doing it today, because of some initiative that he took, and found some stuff where we can do things a little bit better until we fix it. So excuse me. Right now we're going to go ahead and adjourn. The agenda says Fremont Room, but from what I understand, we need a telephone because there'll be someone on a teleconference coming in. So we are adjourning to the Butte Room for closed session. And
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
You need to read the statement under public comment, because the public, under the things that needs to be corrected, has an opportunity to speak on matters in closed session before we go in. Right above it.
What?
Public comment, any member of the public wishing to address the city, right below closed session on your agenda.
But you're saying things that need to be corrected?
No. Things as we're correcting and changing procedures as we're doing it. Not corrected on that. You need to read that statement, sir.
The one I was about to read?
Sure.
Okay. So, we're going to adjourn, but would any member of the public wishing to address the city council on any item listed on the closed session agenda will have an opportunity to present testimony to the city council prior to the city council convening in a closed session. Comments from the public will be limited to 3 minutes. No member of the public will be allowed to present once the city council convenes in a closed session, and you may contact the city clerk in advance in the future of any closed session if you'd like to speak. Any member of the public like to speak on what we're going to speak about? All right. With that, we are adjourned to the Butte.
May I just announce the closed session item, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. This is Conference with Legal Counsel, existing litigation, paragraph 1 of subdivision D of section 54956.9. Name of case, Joyce Jeremiah et al. Versus Sutter County, City of Yuba City, U.S. District Court, Eastern District of California, case number 218-CV00522, TLN-KJN. Thank you.
You give one of those TV commercial into the thing. All right.
Okay. Council, we're back from closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. There are no reportable actions taken in closed session.
Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to an end. Adjourned. The end. Adjourned. Over.